the world that we're involved in, which is serious games, business games, that applies to very much the corporate market and also business schools. And I was delighted with what Mary said, because it's very difficult sometimes when you pop up onto a stage and have a completely different remit or an idea about how things should be. I think what Mary said very much ties in with what we found and what we believe in. And today what I'd like to talk about is this area of return on investment. And before you all go to sleep, I know for some of you might be thinking, well, what's that to do with me? But I believe it's to do with all of us, because we're not just talking about return on investment for the client, the end user that may want to benefit from this, but also yourselves, because many of your organizations and companies have invested quite a lot of money, so you want to see a return on investment too. And it's the marrying of the two that's really important here. And what I'm trying to do today is to decide about this return on investment and how we attain that from our different clients, what that's based on and what the client is possibly looking for, and particularly within the corporate community, how we go about satisfying that need, both their need for a return on investment and our need for a return on investment. What I intend to do is talk about various companies, telco, utility, and technology, and perhaps take some questions at the end. Company itself, and I'll bore you with a bit of blurb about us, we are very much focused on the performance end, about building business acumen, about making people make better decisions. For that reason, what we do is we use games, experiential learning, because we feel that's the best thing. But as Mary said, it's very important to also include in this a form of blended learning. That's why we offer facilitation and we also offer coaching. So our simulations can be run completely online, or they can be run online as a blended solution where we have people actually online helping people with the games, or actually through facilitated workshops. And I'll show you some of the workshops later on through videos, etc. And the other kind of boxes underneath are some of the other areas that we get involved in. These are some of the clients that we work with, and I say this not to sort of impress you, but to impress upon you that we're in no single vertical. So we don't specialize in banks, although we do a lot of work with banks. We're in all different types, pharmaceuticals, manufacturing, service industry, and indeed the business school area as well. To focus on this, can we have a quick show of hands again, if I can see? Kirkpatrick's model, do you all know about this Kirkpatrick's model? Some, yeah, okay. Basically, it's a way of evaluating what you're doing. And this chap thought of an evaluation model that seems to be resonant with a lot of the things that we do. But particularly what he found was that in measuring this, typically what happens is people, first of all, look at the participant, and they say, how was it for you? And this is typically the happy sheet that you get out. It was wonderful, the lunch was wonderful, the facilitator or speaker was quite funny at times, but actually there were some things I actually did learn and take away from that. It was useful for me. Second point, learning. Often there may be some tests in there to say, well, what did you learn? How can we measure that? Unfortunately, what tends to happen in more sort of non-gamey sides, I would say, is that learning evaporates extremely quickly unless they start using it. So on the behavioral side, what we then find is how do you apply this into the workplace? And then crucially, results, this fourth level, which seems to be extremely difficult for most organizations, especially businesses, to muster. And at the bottom of this, I've put in return on investment, because that is the fifth degree. That's where everybody really wants to be. In other words, I spent all this money and time and effort in resource. It's cost me a lot of money. Do I get the result back? And that's what I'm going to talk a bit more about today, and to try and finalize that. So the first thing I would suggest, and in line with the previous speaker, is know the outcome. Know exactly what the client wants, because that's going to, and the secondary targets and tertiary targets as well. What are you actually going to try to achieve? Because sometimes there are great aspirations in this that might not actually be achievable. Very crude diagram. I think Mary's is more elaborate, but this is how I see it, basically, when I talk to a client. A lot of aspiration about what they'd perhaps like to do, and often it hinges around three key areas: how much they've got to spend, how much time we've got to spend on it, and how much time that they want before we deliver it, and the quality. Now, all of this is going to affect the overall price, time, and effort that we put into this, and this must align to what they want and also the return on investment they perceive in getting out of this whole project. So, if we look at something very simple that we can sometimes do, almost like a business model, And this is where we get people just to go in there and play with some financial details, twiddle a few dials. It's a very simple game related to, normally they'd use multiple spreadsheets behind this. They don't need to do this because we can do it for them. We do it for Times Online with the latest budget, for instance. We created a sort of a schematic thing like this so people can play. Very simple, not very expensive. Going through to something like we call a business bite, where we look at a particular piece of the business. How does a company make money? And then what we do is we make a bit of a storyline beforehand. We give them some dynamic models to play with, and then some questions and answers at the end to test their knowledge. Again, not very expensive. Start going to the bespoke simulations. This is something we did for Next for the call center, where they wanted to actually test the effectiveness of their managers in terms of best practice. So we work with subject matter experts to build a simulation that will allow their managers to make decisions in a business environment that is related to their work. Again, a bit more expensive, but you'll see we keep the visuals and the graphics down to save the cost in terms of development. Again, then we start to get on our own generic simulations, because we do a lot of work with business schools and companies where they just want to test basic leadership and management development. So we already have something built and ready to go, which tests a whole host of different areas. But again, you'll notice here, we keep it pretty low key, because often there are challenges with bandwidth, there are challenges with understanding, because we want these people to actually go into the simulation and use it immediately. So there's a storyline down the left-hand side, a task list. There's some icons at the top so they can press. So if we use a complex term like portfolio analysis or even something that they should be familiar with, which is a balance sheet or a P&L, there's actually an explanation, because we expect people to use this online on their own, but also in facilitated workshops. So it's something that we've already created and that is ready to go. Then we get, and obviously there's as much granularity as they want. The business schools want a lot of granularity. They're dealing with executive MBA programs. The professors want lots of detail. Our business clients, quite honestly, tend to pick lighter stuff like revenue, net profit, gross margin, this kind of stuff. Then we start thinking about, okay, how can we make this a bit more engaging if the person wants that and if the person's got a budget, and can we make it about a particular area of the business? In this case, a retail simulation looking at a phone distribution. And then again, we get to this kind of graphic where we get very engaged. And are you ready with the video? Clearly not. Okay. And this shows you some graphics that perhaps you guys are going to be more familiar with, where the client says to us, but I want a lot more look and feel. I want a bit more challenging. I want it a bit more sort of, if you like, sexy. But again, it's about cost. So in this instance, it was about starting our business. How do you start a business? What do you do to generate the business? What markets would you go into? And we kind of put various visuals to make it a bit more attractive. For us, we have to be extremely careful, because what we don't want to do is spend a whole bunch of money on this when it's not what the client wants. What the client wants is for his managers and directors to make actual decisions, real-life decisions, to see how a business actually works and runs. We've found this very popular with younger groups, particularly graduate entry programs, more junior managers. We find that the more senior guys like a more direct approach to making decisions, because that's kind of what they're used to. But certainly, we're preparing ourselves with this kind of thing, where there's a lot more visual, a lot more interaction, and also to see the impact of what happens to their decisions. And in this instance, for instance, this is a typical warehouse situation. Somebody's got their forecast wrong. The sales guys are told they're going to sell a lot. They haven't managed to sell a lot. They've got a warehouse full of stuff. What do they do with it? It's burning up their cash. Cash flow is going to be hit. And how does it affect about the competition? So, again, an interaction if they want it, because it's going to be done online. If a client says to us, look, we want to roll this out, but we want it only for facilitation, workshop, we probably wouldn't put that kind of stuff in. Okay, why people use sort of simulations and why they want particularly simulations from us and from people like us. Realistic, they're modeled on real businesses. So though you see here it's authentic content written by business professors and experts, it's calibrated to act like a real business. If it doesn't act like a real business, it turns people off. It's about this reward again. So crucially for us, if we have just an academic exercise and business professionals are in there saying, well, that's in theory, but it really wouldn't work like that, they won't continue with it. Computer-driven, because there's so much stuff going on in the background, algorithms and everything else to calibrate this. It needs to be driven by a computer or servers. And also at the background there, it's a dynamic market. What that means is that the market depends on who's competing within that market. So that the decisions can be made in one market, they might have a different teams playing against each other. Those same decisions will not be appropriate because the market is dynamic and changes. And it's available anywhere by PC 365 days in various languages too. This gives you a very simplistic view of how we work. So if you can imagine at the bottom here, people will be playing on their computers or PDFs or whatever, either individually or in teams. Each quarter the decisions are made, they make the decisions, those decisions are pumped back to our servers for analysis. The beginning of the next financial quarter, they get a complete idea, an overview of the impact of their decisions on the business. But wherever they are on the globe, or wherever they are in the classroom, our instructors are able, or our facilitators, are able to see exactly what's going on. So we have complete granularity in terms of the monitoring as well. Some of the unique features we do 4, 6, 8, 12, 18 financial quarters, depending on what the customer wants and how long they've got to spend on this. We normally cover all the areas, sales, marketing, finance, manufacturing, because one of the key things we find is people want a complete overview. They may go to a business school, for instance, and they may do an MBA program, and they know lots of the functional aspects. What they want to get is to get the overview of how all of those things work, and that's exactly the same in corporate life. You get people with a great deal of functional excellence, great accounting guy, a great sales guy, great marketing guy. They may not have the overview of the business. That's where we create this. We also create, which I'll show you in a moment, when we run workshops, the idea of putting in things like Dragon's Den in between days, so they can actually pitch to real live investors, and if they're successful, that money can actually be put back into the simulation. And again, they have the choice of whether it's going to be completely online, blended, or facilitated. Plus, they can work in a dynamic market, and here we see a group of teams working together. That could be in a classroom, or it could be anywhere in the globe. These teams, 3 in this case, normally anywhere between 3 to 6 in a team, will compete against others in that marketplace, and they will know who that marketplace is, and they will know who those teams are. Alternatively, we can run it in a league table, so that people can do it at different times. So we've got synchronous and asynchronous. I'll show you this now. This is an event that we carried out, just a one-day event, and what they wanted here was a quick impact one-day event for a telco company. They wanted to get 150 of their guys, sales guys, pitched up to understand about business, so that when they talked to their business clients, the mist didn't come over. They kind of knew what these guys were talking about. So we arranged a simulation that would engage them, but also they'd have some fun. Eventually.
This is Business Smart, specialist in providing fun and engaging business games for conferences and corporate events.
That's a fiercely competitive marketplace.
Over one day, employees collaborate and compete with colleagues from other departments in an interactive team-building exercise, getting individuals to think fast and learn new skills.
Morning all.
People are going to be running their own business in competition in a virtual marketplace. But to do that, they're going to have to work with each other. They're going to have to talk to each other. They're going to have to communicate. They're going to have to find out what strategies each other are playing.
In the past with events, we may have had situations where people may have gone away for sailing or rock climbing or something like that. And the challenge there for execs is often, well, that was great fun, it was a team building exercise, but how does it relate to my business? Well, with increasing pressures on return on investment and focusing on the customer, etc., they want something that really helps their people to understand what business is about and how they can improve their performance. And at the same time, most importantly of all, I guess, have fun. And that's what we do.
Enjoy around one. I'll see you at the end.
I think the Business Smart simulation is the best one I've worked with in terms of its complexity, so it's very realistic, but equally it seems quite simple for the guys to get into it.
Lowest price in town, yes.
Yeah.
You're immersed into a business environment and it gets very competitive. So people have a lot of fun doing this. It really is challenging, but it's a lot of fun.
Still slightly above, just because it's premium project.
It's been great working with the guys from the other channels and having to sort of think out a strategy whilst at the same time be right on the button with your decisions and beat the clock.
Some of these things are set up to be really, really interactive and they don't ever work. This really has.
It was costing us £1 million to run.
See, people really do want to beat each other, but it's all friendly, it's all still friendly stuff.
Fire sale or in the market? In the market, in the market, in the market, in the market.
Really what I wanted to see is people from different sales channels working together and making new connections, and that's really, really happening, so that's great.
We go for 5,000.
We won't do 5,000.
The good news is you plug things in, you get immediate results, so you can flex very quickly, and the time's flying as well. You know, it's incredible.
The guys who are facilitating the event have kept it light touch, given people feedback, and that's helped them really enjoy the day and make it accessible.
54.26% of the market. Wonderful.
It's challenged us to kind of prioritise and make the right decisions.
You're absolutely on the money.
It's made me realise you have to think of other parts of the business.
Cross-compatible solutions. Okay, folks, time is up.
You know, this simulation provides so many channels for an organisation to A, understand what it's got and its capability, B, how it's currently behaving, and C, what potential it has for the future.
So the overall winner, Easy PC!
We all like to feel we're salespeople are really competitive. So even though it is only a game, I'm quite happy that we came out #1.
Have I seen the next CEO? I don't know, but it could be out there somewhere.
Really, just to point out again, you know, what we had to make sure was that we had the right simulation for that kind of event. And I think it's very important what Mary was talking about before, which is some of our simulations are very, very complex. If they're going to be used on an executive MBA program, and it's going to take a very long time. What they wanted with this was just a short, sharp win for a day. Again, if we looked at something like a 2-day facilitated program, which we're going to show, which is a bit more of a development workshop, where we're working a bit more close with these guys, what they would do is they'd run a simulation in the first day, they then do a venture capital pitch, they prepare for a venture capital pitch, they do a business plan, they get ready for just like a Dragon's Den, and the next day, the next morning, they have to present to a VC board. And if they're successful in that presentation, then £3 or £4 million will be injected into the company via the simulation so they can see the impact of that, and it carries on for the rest of the day, and then you get a final review. So this will show you a feeling of a bit more of an elaborate, bit more in-depth working with people close up.
One panel of high-flying executives, sharp.
Now the reason why they got a hold of the cash is because they haven't invested anything.
Focused.
At £200 a share, do you actually want our money?
Tough.
And not looking at the business in a hungry way.
6 teams desperate to convince them that they have the skills, courage and conviction to make their business an international success.
We're looking for £2 million to invest.
£3.5 million, £4 million investment.
So you're looking for £3.5 million at 100 a share.
Careers are at risk.
We would actually like to see a change in the leadership of the team.
Reputations at stake.
They're going to get the money from the bank even if we don't give them any money. So their strategy is going to go forward, whatever we do.
There can only be one winner.
I'm a bit worried about it not working out.
Is there room for manoeuvre there? If you can convince one of our investors, then there may be.
We do not want them in at a premium.
Good job, it's just a game. This is Business Smart, a company with revolutionary software giving executives a chance to test key employees in a virtual world of high finance strategy and competition.
In a nutshell, the teams are pretty much taking control of a very realistic virtual business. So in their teams, they are becoming an executive board, and they'll be running an international business and making all of the decisions that a normal executive team would make.
So we can't get any money back.
I think we should finish our manufacturing. Yeah. Because we haven't actually made enough, we haven't chosen how many products we're going to make.
And they'll be doing it in exactly the same marketplace as the rest of the teams. So it does create quite a bit of competitive spirit and competition as the simulation progresses.
We're not worried about the competition because we've stolen a march on them.
We're aware of them and we're trying to work out what they're doing, but we're not worried about them.
Yeah, I think we're quietly confident.
They do get to learn quite a lot about the decisions that the executive members in the real business are making day to day and the impact of those decisions.
And I'd like to give you the opportunity to invest in our young and dynamic company.
More executives are coming to us saying that they want their managers to really think and act like business people. They want their managers to actually think about the consequences of their decisions. They want their managers to actually think about new ways of cutting costs or improving efficiencies or growing the business.
I can't believe that you're seriously going to look at a £6 million overdraft as a line of credit when it can be recalled at a moment's notice.
It's almost as if they have completely forgotten that they've got a day job. It's almost as if their whole sort of role and their whole career is actually around the task they're doing.
Research, advertising, what have you done?
Look, we know there's a demand out there.
We've got the best practice advertising in our current ranges.
So what's the bottom line and what do we want from you? We need 3 million from you.
We have a challenge with executives, and that's they do tend to get really engaged in this, sometimes more than we want them to be engaged in it. But they love the whole sort of competitive part of business.
When you sat here, you're into it. Absolutely no doubt. Absolutely no doubt.
It is exactly the same environment and exactly the same questions are being fired at you. You know, it is very realistic.
It does feel real because the characters involved are senior managers, so there's an element of tension there.
We would actually like to see a change in the leadership of the team for the next 2 quarters.
I wouldn't say I've been in this position before, but yeah, I understand how these things work, so yeah, you expect it to happen. And I'm pleased it's just a mock-up.
It's as near as it can be to a real situation.
You do seem to have every bit of data available to you, and there is so much to look at.
What we have is something which is very akin to what pilots have when they learn to fly a plane. And what we've actually tried to do is we've tried to create, and we believe we have created, a business flight simulator for the corporate world. So what it actually allows the managers to do is actually run this virtual business, and they run it through laptops and through connected PCs. And we then actually process a huge amount of data and give a huge amount of feedback through the technology that we have. And these are actually built on real businesses. So these are not games we've made up. These are not things we have created. These are things which have been modelled on a real business. We deconstruct a real business, we put it back together again, and we put in the decisions and the results that real businesses would see and would understand. So we hope it's a very authentic and very realistic experience for them.
It's very interesting to see a model transferring into real life, to see a computer screen turning into real decisions. So we're looking forward to the outcome.
There's been a lot of investment put in. Let's see how well it's paid off. So we've got, this is your global market share. So we've actually got now 3rd, looks like Breeden, and Slick maintains 2nd. And finally, the winners of the business simulation, the team that created the most successful and sustainable business, Quantum. Please come up.
In terms of delivery, Business Smart have lived up to expectations. They've pushed our people, which is what we wanted. The whole package has really come through, from marketing to financial to thinking about working as a team, dragging out natural leaders, to actually thinking about risk and actually pushing and making those risk decisions. So as an overall package, which is what we were looking for, Business Smart has delivered for us.
Well, I think what Business Smart have done for us is actually deliver a very sophisticated business simulation. Not only that, but the way that they manage it through the couple of days has been superb. It's far exceeded my expectations of what we would get for our money. And it is a big investment to make in a training for 2 days. But I've got to be honest, it's delivered everything we wanted from it and more.
I feel fantastic. As we went on through the competition, we really wanted to win this, and we put the work in, and we were lucky to have a really diverse team, and we've come out on top.
Okay, you'll have to excuse the sort of, it might seem like a marketing exercise a bit, but it's just the stuff that we've got, and the people were not preempted. The team on both of those, the team came through, actually based with the BBC actually, and shot this. So if it had been a disaster, it would have been a disaster, but as luck would have it, it came out very well. But these people are very engaged, and I think it talks about reward, what Mary talked about earlier, about how important it is reward. But remember the last chap, he talked about, he felt it was value for money and return on investment. And what we now need to do with it, so you've seen what we do and how we do it and how we try and build their skill sets up and try and apply it exactly to the business. Now what we're going to talk about is how we take it a stage further in terms of the real investment side and in terms of how do they attack this. This is an example. I hope you can see the sort of the diagram, but it's a similar thing. Now, what we did here is this particular one was run over 13 weeks, and it was online to start with, all online, and we ran it online with webinars, etc., doing the simulation. Then they came back, and online actually, we also did a VC pitch, and they had to do that online. But then what they had to do, they had to come back for the last couple of quarters and actually run it in a facilitated workshop. But then part of it was to say, okay guys, you've learnt the skill sets, you've learnt what it takes to manage an organisation or a business. Now we're going to task you with building a profit improvement plan. And the profit improvement plan must relate to your business. And what you've got to do is find £100,000 worth of business, of profit for the bottom line. That's the task you've got in your teams. Get planning. So then what happened was, there were various plans put forward to the director of that division. Now in this case, what we had, it was a technology company. They had two lots of groups of people trying to get together, two disparate teams, bringing them together. So what they wanted to do was get them aligned, which the simulation helped them to do. To work effectively in teams and groups, which the simulation helped them to do. To understand overall about business and what makes a successful business. And also to learn how to work remotely, because you know what, the business wanted them to start working remotely in teams. So we kind of did that, but then what we wanted to do is to say, right, can we make this really pay? Can we turn around and show the business that this will help them to make money? They created 27 plans, of which, and they were all looked at at director level, of which 13 were actually selected to go ahead. And to date, and it's an ongoing scenario I might add, to date the return on investment is 1.5 million, because these people have actually gone out into the business and used this. So the point is, if we want to do this thing, if we want to get a return on investment, we have to make it tangible, and we have to make people go into their workplace in whatever work they're doing and actually use these skills and actually get a return on the investment that the company has put into this. And also for ourselves, the only way we can make a return on investment, I believe, is by satisfying the customer and making it profitable for us as well as them. So in answer to this, what we look at here is we're looking at covering the whole of the Kirkpatrick's model plus that end of actually getting a return on investment. So very briefly now, and to summarise and to end. What are we looking to do? We're looking to identify the needs of the customer. What does the customer actually want? What are their required outcomes? What do they really want from this piece of work that they're commissioning us to do? How can we measure if we're successful or not? It's not good enough just to have a happy cheat and say, it was a great time, or yes, I was really engaged and I think I learned quite a bit. We want that into measurable results. We have to look very early on at quality, time and budget issues. Otherwise, we go down a tree, we're offering a client a lot of money, and it's a lot of quality and a lot of technology, which is completely outside of their budget. It's a complete waste of time. So we have to determine very early on the cost benefit, both for the client naturally and for us too as a business. It has to be relevant and realistic. We have to learn to apply that directly to their business or their organization. Measure outcomes, share the information around the business of the success and the failures. And all I would say, if you do happen to go along this route of trying to measure and actually work out the benefits for the client and talking to them afterwards, I wish you the very best of luck. Because if you can do that, you're on the ground where we need to be, which is about actually helping people to improve their organizations. Thank you.
I think we're going to keep it till the end to the panel.